right, let's talk about a topic that I got asked about probably 200 to 500 times over the last 30 days. Now, if you guys are not already familiar with my Lamborghini Huracan, this is a 2015 LP610-4, and I actually featured it in a video about 4 weeks ago where I shipped it back home to where I grew up in Minnesota from Arizona, about 1,500 miles, and I made some cool, fun video. Long story short, that video to this day, I think is at 1.4 or 1.5 million views, which is absolutely insane. So a lot of people from that have asked me all sorts of things. First of all, how did you get a car like this? How do you insure it? What'd you pay in sales tax? What'd you pay for the car? So I've talked about a few of those topics before, and today I want to talk about something that over the span of your life could save you thousands, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. To this day, it's saved me about $40,000, which is huge. And you can use that money to invest, to put it away for a rainy day, or save it for something. So for me, I want to touch on a couple of key specifics on this car specifically, okay? Now, before we do that, I do want to touch on the insurance because I haven't really updated you guys once I changed a lot of things around the insurance, because that was a frequently asked question on that video as well. So to this day, I have purchased 6 vehicles, and I've only ever paid sales tax on one of them, which was actually the first car I ever bought. It was my BMW M4 that I still have to this day, and that car, by far one of my favorite vehicles, but I did not know this trick. I did not know how to very legally and very easily avoid sales tax, and had I known that, I would have saved $4,200 that I just had to pay like that, and I will never get it back. It's terrible. So I want to share with you this thing that I learned, and I only learned it from people who had already been doing it for years, that has now saved me almost $20,000 just on this one car alone, and over $40,000 in total, all right? So if you're excited for that, drop a like on this video. I would greatly appreciate it. If you guys have any other questions as well, feel free to leave them in the comments section down below. And with that being said, let's get into it. So what is sales tax? For anyone who's not familiar on actually what the purpose is, it's actually a government tax that's a set percentage, both on either a federal level, a state level, or a local level, where that money is gonna go to, again, either a local area or a larger area, where that government body is gonna use that money for ideally something useful for the community. That could mean a big park, redoing the roads, any of these big things that your taxpayer dollars go to, okay? So similar to how you're gonna pay anywhere from like 20 to 50% of your income in income tax, well, this is just their way of getting even more money from you whenever you purchase something. So just like with state income, federal income, or any other tax placed by the government, there are usually ways to avoid this. Just like how last year, where Amazon, a $1 trillion company, paid $0 in tax. No tax on their business. They were able to avoid that. And again, it is not necessarily an illegal thing to do depending on how you do that. There are people who cross the line, but when it comes to sales tax, let's break it down to the bare bone minimums. So first of all, this is for people who are in the United States. I know there are other countries where there is no sales tax. Consider yourself lucky. If you do live in a country where there is sales tax, for some people it's ridiculously high. I've seen insane numbers like 20% or 30% on luxury vehicles. That's wild, and I'm sure there are ways to get around it, so you just gotta find those specific loopholes, right? But for people here in the US, you're gonna pay anywhere from 0% up to like 9.8 to 10%. So it could be like California, where it's about 8 to 8.5%. Minnesota, which is where I grew up and bought my first car, paid about 7.5% on my first vehicle. And you can go in and Google this and look at your specific location depending on which state you are in, but there's ways to avoid it. So the first way, this is the easiest way, and I actually had such an in when it comes to buying my Lamborghini, is by doing what's called a private party sell. Okay, this is essentially the easiest way to do this and the fastest, most legit way to write off, or to avoid, excuse me, to completely avoid the sales tax on a vehicle. Okay, so I had an in, kind of a unique situation when it came to my Lamborghini. I was up at Lamborghini North Scottsdale, which is here in Arizona, which is where I was at the time, and I was looking at Lamborghinis. Now, at the end of the day, personally, I would never really buy from a dealership. And I knew that. I knew I did not want to buy a Lamborghini from them. I was just bored and wanted to go look. So I saw that they had terrible deals. I mean, they're marking it up ridiculous. There's going to be dealer fees. And whenever you buy from a dealership, unless you use this one thing I'm going to explain in a moment, you're going to pay sales tax for sure. There's no way to avoid it. So I actually saw that one of my buddies, who I didn't know too well back at the time, had a Lamborghini for sale. The same one I wanted with all the tricks and modifications and whatever. So essentially, I told him I wanted it, went and test drove it, bought the car the next day. Loved it. That is what's called a private party sale, where a person directly sells it to another person. There's no dealership involved. So that's where it doesn't get into like huge rules and regulations where you're gonna have to pay this sales tax, right? But when you're buying it from a dealership, you have to pay sales tax. Or do you, right? So there's actually one way to avoid this very easily. And if you would like to purchase your vehicle from a dealership, you can do it. It's not going to be as easy as just a regular private party sale. You know, going on any of the websites like carsforsale.com or cargurus.com, where you can see if it's a dealership selling it or a private party. But if you decide that you want to go into a dealership, that's totally fine. If they have the car you want, you can buy it from there. But again, do not ever pay sales tax. Are you listening? Hang on, pay attention, watch the video. Do not ever, 0%, ever pay sales tax on a car. Ever. Here's how you do it with the dealership, okay? So, the first vehicle I bought, again, my BMW M4, I did pay sales tax. I did. I did not know how to avoid it. It sucked. The only other time, and let me make sure this is focused. I don't know if this is fully focused. Anyways, the only other time I've ever bought a vehicle from a dealership is the car that I bought for my grandpa. Now, some of you guys might have seen this video. It didn't really blow up or get a lot of views, kind of went unnoticed. But essentially, I bought my grandpa a vehicle earlier this year, and it was actually through the BMW dealership, or I don't know which one, I don't remember, in Chicago. So I was looking for a car. He's a big car nut. I always said I would buy him a car, so super happy and blessed to be able to do that. And I was looking all around for the specific one he wanted. There was only a few for sale, and I found the one that was the best deal. So what I did is I called the dealership and I said, I want your car. I have two criteria. I said, you're going to ship it to me for free and you're going to private party sell it to me. And when you're negotiating with the dealership, it's best to be very straight to the point, you know, have something that benefits them as well. I knew they were making profit on the car. That's totally fine. So I said, ship it to me for free because I'm not local. I'm only a few states over. It's going to cost them only a couple $100. I said, ship it to me for free and private party sell it to me, which means they really only have to fill in like one other piece of paperwork. It's like another sheet. It takes them 30 seconds, right? So when I said this, I knew exactly what I was talking about. I had already done the research. I said my company is buying this vehicle and gifting it to a member of this company. So I had my grandpa way back in the day co-sign on my first company. Now I don't use that legal entity anymore, but I took money from my current company, funded it into that company, and bought him a vehicle with the company money that was gifted to him, a member of the company. So a dealership is actually not allowed to private party sell you a vehicle directly. They can only private party sell it to other dealerships or to a company, okay? And most dealerships probably won't do this for you. This might have been a unique situation. I don't know because I've only done it the one time, but you can always ask and it's not gonna hurt to ask. So my point with bringing that up, and you can really dodge the sales tax with a dealership here, is if you go open an LLC, a legal entity, right? A limited liability corporation, you can go do that on websites like Better Legal or whatever. You can open an LLC for a couple $100 or less. Right? So now you're a business owner, even if you don't have a business, which you can totally go file for a business that's totally legal, right? And now you can have them sell it to the company or to you through the company, right? So you can have that LLC, and by spending a couple $100, let's say you're buying a $20,000 car. Okay, whether you're financing or not, that's sales tax. You're still going to have to pay it, right? So it's not a very fun thing to pay. So on a $20,000 vehicle, let's say you're paying $1,000, $2,000 in sales tax. Well, you can very easily avoid that by spending just a couple hundred to open this company, right? So do the math and look at the specific laws and regulations where you are, but it can make a lot of sense to figure out how to private party sell a vehicle because you can dodge that sales tax. And you know, for my vehicle specifically, the title and the clickbait, whatever, the Lamborghini, just like I did with my other vehicles, I was able to dodge that tax bill completely by doing a private party sell. There is probably no chance I would have bought that car if it had sales tax, right? I would have waited until I could figure out how to do a private party sell. Same thing with my GTR, same thing with the R8, same thing with the other GTR, and same thing with the vehicle I bought for my grandpa. I wasn't about to go pay sales tax, especially when there's ways around it, okay? So try and find those loopholes, try and find exactly, how you can kind of get around it. It's totally legal. Again, it's not sketchy by any means. It's just something you can do to avoid that. And it's very easy to find someone who is private party selling a vehicle. Imagine like a Bugatti. Let's just do some crazy car, $2, $3, $4 million. There are people who private party sell those cars. And imagine the amount of money you'd be saving in tax on a vehicle like that. You're talking a multi-six-figure check that you would have had to cut in exchange to the government, essentially, for getting that car. And that's for nothing. You're not getting that money back. And for me, I'm a little bit of a bargain hunter. I don't consider myself frugal or cheap, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to spend money where it's not needed. So if I can get around it, that's totally cool. I definitely try to do that, right? So for me, I made sure that was the situation with all my cars where I could avoid that very large bill, okay? Now, as mentioned in the beginning, I do want to bring this up because it was as well probably the second most frequently asked question was the insurance on my Lamborghini. Now, immediately when I got it, it was very hard to get insurance. I was 18 years old. I had 2 years of driving history. Naturally, this video is going in and out of focus. Naturally, it was a disaster. There was only 2 companies who were willing to insure me. I ended up going with State Farm, which was the one I had currently already been using for my BMW. And they quoted me, and I ended up paying for 4.5 months. I was paying $2,450 a month. Maybe $2,460. So right around $2,500, which, it's $30,000 a year. And I know people who pay way more than that in other countries for cars that are not that high of a value, which is insane. But I was not happy paying that, so I was always shopping around, asking friends and connections how I could get cheaper insurance. I ended up going through a broker, and I got a really cool policy. I pay around $9,000 a year, which is much better. Again, another $20,000 a year saved, and I'm able to do that. I pay it every 6 months. It's like 700 and something bucks a month, and I pay 6 months in advance every 6 months. So it's pretty easy on that side of things, but from a sales tax perspective, it's really not all that complicated to dodge that bullet, but it can save you so much money. Let's say the average person owns 6 or 7 cars throughout their lifetime. Some people more, some less, whatever. Regardless, this tip and trick is going to save you so much money. So make sure that you're looking for a private party sell, and it would be a lot easier if you had a company to go along with that, because it would open your doors to potentially buying it from a dealership if that's the car you want, okay? So I hope you guys enjoy this video. I hope you put use to this tactic the next time you buy a vehicle, whether that's coming up soon or sometime in the future. I do wish you the best. I hope you enjoyed it. If you got some value, I would greatly appreciate it if you dropped a like down below, and make sure to smash the subscribe button, because I have a bunch more cool car content, which may or may not include some races with some other wild cars with the twin turbo Huracan coming soon. All right, so make sure to stick around that if you're interested in anything in cars, business, or finance. And with that being said, I'll be seeing you in the next video. Peace.